that they want to be the dominant force in the world. And the only dominant forces in the world have been military. That's where we have to start to change immediately. Thank you.
Thomas Faisal now, and then we'll be gender neutral from now. Thank you.
Okay. First of all, I would like to thank all the speakers and all the people who participated in this event. My name is Faisal, and as you can see, I'm a dirty, hairy Arab, you know. But I promise you, I'm not a terrorist. I'm a peaceful person, and like most, if not all, of my people, you know, we long for peace. And before I mention a few points, I just want to say that we are all human, and we are share, you know, history and blood, and you know, and a lot of things. And the Jewish greeting is Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem. You know, it's the same in greeting of Jesus, and the same greeting that we have in Islam, and that we believe is the greeting of people in heaven. So I just wish you all Salam Alaikum or Shalom Aleichem, which means peace be upon you. I think in the beginning I was taught history when I was a kid, you know, from one side. So I was, you know, kind of brainwashed, you know, until I met several friends and asked them to bring me some books of some American thinkers, whom mostly Jewish and Israeli, like Norman Finkelstein and Ellen Babe and Bobby Morris, and a lot of really good authors who are academic, and they taught in good universities. And I can just recommend two books, you know, that could, you know, give you a different, you know, perspective. The first book is Beyond Spitza by Norman Finkelstein, and the other book is The Israeli Ethnic Cleansing of Palestinians by Ellen Babe, who is, I believe, Israeli Jewish citizen. And there are, I think, a few points that were mentioned a few times, and I just want to make a quick comment on them. The first point is, since Israel was the Jewish home for about 200 years in the past or something like that, then it should be their home of today. And based on this analysis, then we can claim also southern Spain for Arabs, you know, because it was ours for 700 years, and that's longer than 200 years in the past, you know, before Jesus Christ. So, and the other argument is size matters, and Israel is just, you know, tiny state, and that could be, I mean, debatable, because England is a small country and it conquered all the earth. I mean, most of the nations of the world were conquered by England, and in the 16th century alone, they enslaved 28 million from Africa, and they sent them to South America and North America. And also size sometimes, you know, is not a show of like vulnerability, you know, because Spain is a small country, but they committed the biggest human genocide, killing 300 million people in the Americas.
Could we now focus on the way forward? Do you have some suggestions?
Yes,
about
I wanted to mention the Arab Initiative in 2002.
Please do.
Yeah, and why Israel didn't even reply to it. And I mean, there were some other peaceful approaches, you know, to solve the problem. And me and all of, you know, my fellows, of course, want peace with Israelis, you know. But I mean, before I was, I mean, not, I mean, thinking about the two sides. But now, you know, of course, you know, I don't approve of terrorist attacks against Israeli civilians. You know, there are people, you know, as much as we are, and you know, we share a lot of history and blood, and I don't think, you know, it's right to kill them just because they're different. But yeah, the question is, why did Israel not, you know, approve the initiative? And I think the terms were fair and simple. And I just want to thank everybody, and I wish peace. And as I started with saying, wishing you peace, I end with wishing you all peace. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you.
Thank you. You've been very patient here. Thank you for your patience.
Well, we started this discussion, this final discussion, in terms of looking forward. So, in that context, what has struck me is all the discussion we've had and heard about security, which is a very important issue for the Israelis. But it's always couched in the context of conflict of military security, whether it's in defense or offense. And that's not unique to the Israelis. I mean, we are in a world today where security is looked at that way. But I would suggest that security doesn't have to be defined in a military context. And as a suggestion, I would say, someone mentioned that we Americans contribute this foreign aid to Israel, a great deal of foreign aid. What if, say, a third of that, if the Israelis would take a risk on committing that to improving the West Bank, improving the Palestine condition, and actually maybe use some of those conscripted youth to use their skills and their energy to help in that effort, almost like a Peace Corps kind of effort, that it might help redefine, one, if what we see in the Palestinian occupied territories begins to change because of that, like a Marshall Plan, if you will. That could make a great impression on the rest of the world, as well as the rest of the Arab world. And it might begin that process of rapprochement.
Thank you. Did you, in the back, I can hardly see, in the red shirt standing up.
Oh.
Did I see your hand up?
I did have a quick comment. You don't have to give me the mic. No, I was thinking about Herb's question that we need a mediator. So I was just going to propose a mediator. I think a great mediator would be the Dalai Lama. You know, I'm thinking about his recent book, Beyond Religion. He's looking at ways to find solutions that are beyond religion. And, he's kind of a bit of a neutral character. So anyway, that was my proposal. Bring in the Dalai Lama.
Okay. Solution. Here, and then here, and then here. Over here first, Kathleen, please. Up near the front. Thank you.
My name is Bert Prince, and what I want to say has something to do with what you're saying.
A little closer.
This closer?
Yeah.
Okay. What I want to say has something to do with what you were saying, that so much aid goes in military aid to Israel. That makes a tremendous amount of money for the U.S. It's an economic issue. And if that were to be cut, that there are probably a lot of towns or cities that would not have work for their thing. So the congressmen say, well, our people have to do something. But I think that it is an economic issue for the U.S. And that same aid that they are putting into arms can be put into different things within our country and for other countries. And that's where change has to come from, part of the change.
Wes, take it.
Thank you for the discussion. I was disappointed in going forward with what I heard from the panel at first. I really was. The economic stuff, that makes a lot of sense. Not religious, but spiritual. The Dalai Lama, when that makes sense too. It really, really does. When I was 10 years old at that school right over there, they had us getting underneath our desks. They scared the crap out of us over the Cuban Missile Crisis. That very same year, I remember this being excited about the United Nations. This new hope for the world. I mean, it sounded so exciting. It did. Herb, you said the United Nations a little while ago, and I heard Rabbi David talk about them, and they're nothing. They won't do anything. How can we make the United Nations stronger? What can we do, maybe we here in this country do, to make the United Nations stronger? A diplomatic solution is the solution, and we need a strong United Nations. That's the way to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. This gentleman here with the white beard. How's that for a description?
If you've got a beard, it's white around here.
I think my question has kind of been answered, but I'd like to throw it to the panel, because I think Israel's security depends on whether the best security for Israel would be if their neighbors are prosperous, particularly the Palestinians. So I'd like to ask the panel, and particularly Emanuel, what could Israel do to help increase the prosperity of the Palestinians?
I agree totally that security is a very multifaceted issue, and military or defense is only one of them. A necessary one, not adequate one. And just as it is that, so the economic prosperity is a necessary one, but not adequate one. So you have to combine things together. And I'm certain, I don't know the absolute details, I'm certain that in those negotiations back in, I don't know which year, around 2000, with Arafat, Clinton, and Barak, there was a huge economic incentive on the table for the Palestinians. And you can check that out, how much it was.
Okay, sir.
Yes, you're talking about economics. I was always wondering about all the Palestinians' Arab neighbors and how much help they get from Saudi Arabia and some of these countries that have huge, vast amounts of wealth that could help their Arab brothers. And if they've been helping them, I don't see it. And I would think a way forward, that's what we're talking about, would be for the Arab nations in the area to put some money in to their Palestinian brothers and help them.
Actually, they do. I mean,
Well, they need to help them more then.
I understand.
Okay.
I'm having a sense that we're getting exhausted. That's part of a moderator's job, is to try to feel how much energy is left in the room, and we're doing some leakage. What I'd like to do is close by giving everybody up here a chance to make 1 or 2 minutes more if there's a final comment you'd like to make, and then I'll bring it to a close.
Thank you, Herb. Thank you, audience. Very patient, and some very good questions, very good comments. This is an issue that's gone on for a long, long time. Probably to think we're going to solve it here today, of course, is, again, the height of naivety. But at the same time, it gives us to think. And I think the best possible way to handle dealing with this is constantly keeping in mind there is a double story. And you have to hear both sides. You have to learn what both sides are, how they function, how the culture works, what they want, what they believe, what the aspirations and what the fears are. You cannot just take one side and run with it. That's going to go nowhere. One has to really balance these things, both in your reading and both in your own understanding and presentations. Try to be as balanced as possible on it. And then somewhere in the middle, find something that you think will actually, what can bridge the two things together? What can make it work? There was a great book written about 20 years ago by David Fromkin, a writer that wrote about the World War I and the treaties that came after it. It's called A Peace to End All Peace. P-E-A-C-E, peace. Peace to end all peace, meaning that every peace treaty at the end of World War I turned into a freaking disaster. And he's the first, people felt this for a long time, but then again, at the end, it turned out to be that we needed to rethink that, all of it. And I think going over the peace process and looking at the current situation in Palestine and Israel, there needs to be a clear understanding of both sides. Weigh both sides. Just don't go running off after one persuasion or the other. You have to look at both sides in order to come to a clear understanding of where you think the focus should be. You have to do this. It's painful. Some people didn't want to see this movie today. You could tell that right away. It was painful. Some people didn't want to hear the presentation today on how good Israel, what good a shape Israel was. I don't know your name, but you were on the panel. Yeah, because I didn't agree with their position. You have to listen to hear, you have to learn to listen. There is a solution out there. There's something out there. The human race has been around for I don't know how many years, a long time. And I'm really feeling it these days. Yeah, I just turned 78. No, I'm going to turn, I can't remember. Anyway. But anyway, it's learn to be fair-minded in your judgment of history. And as you try to work forward to solutions, you have to, that fairness is something that's going to give you a judgment that's going to actually, that's going to, I think, bode well for your future understanding and future decisions. This is a critical issue. It's one of the most, it's the one thing that continues to inflame the entire region when everything else seems to settle down. This one issue continues. This one issue continues, and it's the issue that every player in the area decides to jump on in order to maximize it for their own political gain or whatever. They don't solve the issue, but the issue is there constantly. Be fair in your analysis.
Thank you, Bob. Emanuel?
Well, Bob, you said 80 years. 80 years, and some. 80 years is an eye blink in history, especially in the Middle East culture. We need to understand it. We heard some of it in both talks. 2,000, 3,000 years back on one hand. Another one was talking about several hundred years again. So, I mean, that's fine. That's one thing to keep in mind. The other thing is that if you are patient at the end of the day, and you have the courage, and it takes both sides, to start the proper education, and I can't agree more with people that were saying that we need to start with the children. If we stop the incitement on both sides, either side, and we start getting them together, and we get them to understand that they are two different people, but they are the same people, human beings, okay? Then maybe in 20 years, 30 years, there will be the leaders that will be pushed to have the courage to make this leap of faith. And I'm not lightheaded about the easiness of doing that change that I just mentioned. That also takes a huge leap of faith to stop the incitement and start educating the children in a new way. Once that happens, there will be hope. I know, and you've heard about it, and I personally have witnessed this. In Israel, there are schools of Jewish boys and Arab boys going together to the same school and the same class, being taught by two teachers, one Arab and one Jewish, in both languages, Arab and Hebrew. Okay? And they celebrate both holidays of the, not both, three holidays of the three major religions. Muslim, Christian, and Jewish. My hope is to see the same kind of schools coming up also within the Palestinian Authority and teaching that way, and that will be the start of a move to a better future and give some hope.
Thank you. The original Zionist aspiration was to bring together Jews from all over the world to a safe place, because the world was, in general, not a safe place for Jews. The Arab world was safer than a lot of places. Israel has not achieved that aspiration. What you hear is a great deal of insecurity, fear, defensiveness. And it has also led to acts that many people, both in Israel and Jews all over the world, are ashamed of. I would like to see the original Zionist aspiration fulfilled, that at least half of it, that is, the Jews have a safe place to live. We don't all have to live in the same place, but it's not happening. As a Jew, I'm concerned for Jews. And I'm concerned deeply that if this continues, the very moral heart of Judaism will be cut out. I cannot see for the life of me why the occupation and the settlements are necessary to the legitimate security needs of Israel. And as David said, oh, well, we'll get rid of it. That would be a great, giant leap forward. And I would suggest that as we think about all that we've heard, we do commit to working for the halt of further settlements and the removal of the existing settlements as a precondition of a just peace, which can be complicated, but I find it very hard to justify the settlements as a necessity for Israel's security. It seems to me, on the other hand, it jeopardizes it. It jeopardizes world opinion and world favor, but as a Jew, even more, it jeopardizes our moral security, because we cannot act that way. We just cannot act that way as a people who've been acted that way upon. We just cannot do that. I think that is the one unilateral step that Israel could take, though politically very difficult, that would make a huge difference. The UN Club has been Peace House's partner here. I want to end by affirming the potential of the UN. I think if countries like the United States would let it function, it could do marvels. And I think it could do marvels for this conflict. So I hope that we will all be supporters of the United Nations as an instrument where individual nations have failed for bringing lasting peace to the world. And with that plug for the UN, I think it's time to thank everybody, particularly all the people who took a role in the program, all of you who spoke your mind, and everybody who sat through this and now will make a commitment to fairness, to understanding, and to justice. Thank you.